In this video, you'll learn how to install a Simpson hold down, as well as the wedge anchor to go with it. You'll be needing your hilti drill for this video, so we'll just plug it in with our trick that we learned in the drill video. Tighten it, plug it in. Now, the hilti drill, for this function, we're going to want to put it into the hammer and the rotary hammer function. Make sure that we have the appropriate bit. So what you want to do is just check the. So of course you won't want to have a bit that's perfectly sized for the anchor. You want it closer to the size of the wedge itself. Otherwise, you'll never even get the wedge in. How these work is as they're being driven in, the sleeve will expand into the concrete and wedge it nice and firm. The point of these is that you don't have to worry about drilling too deep. If you drill too deep, the wedge anchor will be set at whatever the depth of your nut is set at. So any space below will not be a big issue. So again, wherever your foreman has marked out for you, where the location of the anchor goes, you want to just set the anchor in the wall, and at the bottom you have the hole for the wedge anchor, and that's to help you figure out the location where you need to drill. So you just reach in with your pencil, put a little X for where the hole needs to be drilled. You don't want the hole down too far over, because as you drill through here, it could split your plate, and you don't want it too far back either. Again, for the same reason, you don't want to split the plate. Another tip to look out for is the concrete. If the concrete is closer to this edge and you drill through the plate on this edge, not only will you have a chance of splitting the plate, but also breaking the concrete as you drive the wedge anchor in. Because as it's driving in, remember, the sleeve is expanding, forcing the concrete outwards. So if that ends up breaking the concrete, then you'll have to potentially move your hole down in a different location. So now that we have our X marked out, we can begin drilling. What I will want to do is take the wood drill and drill just a little bit through this plate. Of course, not all the way down, so that the tip of the wood drill bit is going to drive into the concrete, damaging it. So now that you have the plate pretty much drilled all the way through, you'll want to take your hilti drill with the proper size bit and drill down into the concrete about the depth of the bolt, but maybe even an inch or two past this depth. So you'll want to have, again, your safety glasses on, ear protection especially, and your gloves. Now these are special gloves, and this is the importance of wearing the proper gloves for the proper task. If you're just wearing the really thin, cheap gloves to keep your hands from getting slivers or such, it will not do anything for your hand for shock absorption or vibration absorption. And these vibration injuries happen over time. They don't just happen right away, so you actually don't even notice them until later on in your career. And what happens is you can get a disease that cuts the circulation around your fingers. I think the short term for it is called white finger disease. It can also cause vibration damage to your tendons around your wrist, carpal tunnel, your elbow, all the way up to your shoulder. Another thing that you'll need to check is the manual for the MS2, which is the magnitude of the drill, and check on the chart for how long you'll be able to use this drill. Depending on the size of the drill and the vibration magnitude, you may only be able to use a drill for a certain amount of time. So you want to check that, make sure you're not exceeding that limit. So, that being said, I'll start drilling. When you're using an epoxy fastening, you'll need to blow the dust out of that hole out. But as for the wedge anchor, because you're not using an epoxy adhesive, you don't need to worry about that. But I'm going to show you a little trick here, because if I was to just drive this wedge anchor down before putting the nut and washer on, I'll damage these threads around the top of the bolt, making it very difficult or impossible to get the nut back on. So we're going to slide this through, put our washer on, put our nut back on, just thread it down about, they say about 6 thread lengths down the bolt. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's good. Put the anchor in place, tap it down to get it set. And to get it right down to the bottom, of course you'll need a 3-inch nail to nail these off. That down. And then just finger tighten a little bit extra to get it right down. And later on we'll take a wrench and really tighten it down just a couple turns. The reason you don't want to keep continuing to turn down with the wrench, keep tightening it, is that it can start pulling the wedge anchor back up. So just a couple tight turns and that'll be good for this. Now we want to just continue nailing this off with 3-inch nails. Set it, move your hand, nail. And we'll continue nailing. Every single hole needs to be filled with a 3-inch spike. Or you can also use a 2.5-inch number 12 gauge spike as well.